Hi everyone. I am going to pause the video here and shut my camera off. I'm actually in an airport, so I apologize for the noise, and you certainly don't want to see all of what's going on behind me. Okay, so I'll keep this pretty brief this week. So past week we talked about false claims in Stark and anti-kickback, all the fraud and abuse statutes, really important aspects of the law, and hopefully you saw through our discussion board that there are so many still continue to be recent violations related to these laws, which have been around for years and years and years, but people are still having confusion over how to apply them. So I look forward to looking at your infographics. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. This week, we're actually going to move on to a few other areas. Specifically, EMTALA is our discussion board post for this week. So you have some facts on EMTALA, and I encourage you to go out and seek out some other, sorry about that, seek out some other info as well if you need to. But EMTALA is another very important law from um, from a overall standpoint in the healthcare setting, what our requirements are under EMTALA versus what people often think they are. So that's an important one. We have our final project that's due this week, 3 to 5 page paper. So you can take two tacks to that. You can either choose a case and write a case brief. And here in the classroom, there's some additional information about how to write a case brief. Or you can choose an ethical issue, and then I want you to describe that issue in detail and then provide arguments for both sides of the issue. So we've clearly gone over quite a few of both cases and cases and ethical issues. Feel free to choose whichever one you find more interesting. So I want to go over a few of the quiz questions from last week. First question was, a contract serves to provide one or more parties with a legal remedy to, and obviously lots of answers here, but our correct answer is require the parties to perform its legal obligations pursuant to the terms of the contract. So generally what a contract is a binding agreement between two or more people. And the point of it is really to ensure that the people that are parties to the agreement do what they say they're going to do. So, for example, I am on my way back from San Antonio, Texas, because I had a contract with an organization to come and speak to their facility in San Antonio. So I'm currently in Chicago on my way back to Pittsburgh. But so that I had a contract with them. My contract said that I would go and teach them about compliance issues, fraud and abuse specifically. So that contract, if I did not show up, if I didn't make my way down to San Antonio on Sunday, they could have sued me in probably small claims court. It wouldn't be a big claim. It wasn't. I didn't get a lot of money to do this, but they could sue me because they had people there waiting to be trained, and I did not perform my legal obligations as part of the contract. So that's really what a contract is about. Federal act that provides that every contract in the form of a trust or otherwise or conspiracy in restraint of trade or commerce is the Sherman Antitrust Act. So obviously there's several different laws listed there, but the Sherman Antitrust Act is really a law that comes into play when you're talking about specific restraint of trade or development of monopoly, those types of things. So not monopoly the game, but monopoly like in an industry where, for example, I used to live in upstate New York. Well, I mean, it's the same thing in Pittsburgh, but in upstate New York, the only person that you could get high-speed internet from was Spectrum. So, which was previously Time Warner Cable. We didn't have access to Verizon. We didn't have access to other types of high-speed online services. So they really had a type of monopoly. That would be inappropriate under the Antitrust Act because it's a restraint of trade. So you don't ever want to have those situations. The next one, conditioning of the awarding of a contract on an under-the-table percentage payback to a public official who has the ability to influence who will be awarded is known as, and this is what's known as a kickback or a bribe. So under the law, it's known as a kickback, but think about situations where, even in television shows, sorry, it's getting really loud in here all of a sudden, in television shows where there are, Bob knows Joe who owns this this construction firm, and Bob is a public official. So the public official makes sure that Bob gets the job on the construction site, and then he gives a little bit of money back to the public official. That's a kickback. However, the same thing happens fairly regularly, sadly, in the healthcare sector, where I had a kickback situation at one of my prior employers, where we were trying to purchase new CT equipment, and the chief of radiology, who had a hand in making the decision, was being provided Final Four tickets. This was in Syracuse, so Syracuse happened to be in the Final Four that year for basketball. He was being given lush vacations, things like that. So obviously we had to deal with that, make sure he paid them back for those things. But that's a kickback, and it happens all the time in the healthcare world. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions about the assignments or what's going on for your final project, please let me know. Next week, let's see, what do we have next week coming up in week 8? It's a pretty short week. We don't have any papers or anything due, but remember that our week ends on Friday. So next week we'll run Monday to Friday, and your new classes start Saturday. So assuming you're continuing on another 8-week class. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you all in the classroom. Thanks.